She won't say it. She won't even admit it to herself. But the way she starts acting around you changes, and if you don't notice it, you'll miss the moment where her silence was actually asking for your attention. There are phases in a person's life where emotional and physical connection becomes distant, not because they don't want it, but because life, experiences, or past situations have created space between them and intimacy. And when that space becomes too long, something shifts. Not loudly, quietly. A woman who hasn't felt genuine connection in a long time doesn't suddenly become obvious. She becomes subtle, more aware, more intentional with her energy. Because deep down, she's not just seeking attention, she's seeking to feel something real again. And that need doesn't come out in words, it comes out in behavior. You might notice she becomes slightly more present around you, not in a dramatic way, but in a focused way. Her attention lingers. She listens more closely. She responds with a level of engagement that feels different from casual interaction. That's not random. That's emotional awareness increasing. Because when someone has gone without meaningful connection, they start valuing moments differently. Small interactions begin to carry more weight. Now, here's where it gets deeper. She might start creating opportunities to be around you, not directly asking, not forcing it, but positioning herself in your environment more often than necessary. Conversations that didn't need to happen start happening. That's not coincidence, that's intention, expressed safely. Because she's not trying to risk rejection. She's testing the space, seeing if you notice, seeing if you respond. Now, understand this clearly. This is not about desperation, it's about reawakening. When a woman hasn't felt emotionally connected in a long time, her energy doesn't become chaotic, it becomes focused. She becomes more selective, more aware of who she invests her attention in. And if that attention is landing on you, it means something. But most people miss it because they're looking for obvious signs, clear signals, something undeniable. But real human behavior rarely works like that. It works in layers, subtle shifts, small changes in tone, timing, and presence. And if you're not paying attention, it all looks normal. But if you are, you start to see the pattern. The way she looks at you a second longer, the way she engages just a bit more, the way her energy feels slightly different when you're around. That's not something she planned. That's something she feels. And feelings, when they've been absent for a long time, become powerful when they return. That's the beginning, not of anything physical, but of awareness. And once that awareness is there, everything else starts to follow. What you'll notice next isn't louder behavior, it's more intentional energy. She won't suddenly become someone else. She won't turn into a completely different person overnight. Instead, she becomes more precise with how she shows up around you. Her presence sharpens. Conversations that used to feel casual now feel slightly more meaningful. She asks questions that go just a little deeper. She listens, not just to respond, but to understand. And when you speak, there's a pause, a moment where it feels like she's actually absorbing you. That shift is important. Because when someone hasn't experienced connection in a long time, they don't just seek attention, they seek depth. Now pay attention to this. She may begin to mirror your energy more than before. If you're calm, she becomes calmer. If you're engaged, she leans in slightly more. This mirroring isn't conscious, it's psychological alignment. Her mind is trying to sync with yours, to create a sense of connection without needing to define it. And this is where most people misunderstand what's happening. They assume it's friendliness, but there's a difference between being friendly and being emotionally invested. Friendliness is light, it comes and goes. Investment lingers, it stays even after the moment ends. You'll notice she might start remembering small details about you, things you mentioned casually, things most people would forget. And then she brings them up later, almost effortlessly. That's not small, that's focus. Because when her attention is drawn to someone after a long period of emotional distance, it doesn't scatter, it concentrates. Now here's something even more subtle. Her communication becomes slightly more open, but still controlled. She may share a little more about herself than usual. Not everything, not deeply vulnerable right away, but enough to create a bridge. Enough to see if you meet her halfway, This is her way of testing emotional safety. She's not asking directly, "Can I trust you?" She's observing your response. Do you listen or do you dismiss? Do you stay present or do you shift away? Because after a long gap without connection, she doesn't move quickly. She moves carefully. Every small interaction matters. Every response you give shapes what she feels next. And here's where it becomes powerful. If she feels understood, even in small ways, her openness increases. Not all at once, gradually. And in that gradual opening, her energy becomes warmer, more consistent, more intentional towards you. But if she senses disinterest or lack of awareness, she pulls back just as quietly as she came forward. No drama, no explanation, just distance, because she's not chasing, she's observing and deciding. That's why awareness matters, because these moments are not loud. They don't demand attention, they reward it. And if you can see what's happening beneath the surface, you realize something important. She's not just interacting with you, she's slowly choosing whether you're someone worth feeling again. And then something even more revealing begins to happen. Her energy starts to carry a quiet intensity, not loud, not dramatic, but noticeable if you're paying attention. Because when a woman hasn't felt a real connection in a long time, and she begins to feel it again, she doesn't rush forward, she leans in, carefully. You'll notice moments where the conversation slows down, but neither of you feels the need to fill the silence. That silence isn't empty. It's full of awareness. She's not just talking to you anymore. She's feeling the space between you. And that's where the shift happens. Her eye contact becomes slightly stronger, not aggressive, not overwhelming, just steady enough to hold your attention longer than usual. And in those moments, she's not just looking at you. She's reading you, trying to understand your energy, your intentions, whether you're someone safe to move closer to or someone she needs to stay guarded around. Now, here's something deeper most people miss. She may begin to show small signs of vulnerability, but in controlled ways. Maybe her tone softens when she speaks about certain things. Maybe she shares a personal thought and then quickly changes the subject. Maybe she laughs, but there's a hint of something more behind it. That's not inconsistency. That's caution. Because opening up after a long emotional distance isn't easy. It requires trust. And trust isn't given all at once. It's built in moments. That's why her behavior might feel like a quiet push and pull. One moment she's slightly closer, more engaged, more open. The next, she pulls back just enough to protect herself. This isn't confusion. It's self-protection mixed with curiosity. And if you misread it as disinterest, you'll miss what's actually happening. Because underneath that caution, there's interest. There's a desire to feel something again, but without risking too much too soon. Now watch how she reacts to your presence. Does her energy shift when you enter the room? Does she become a little more aware, a little more focused? That shift is not accidental. It means your presence affects her. And when someone who has been emotionally distant for a long time starts reacting to someone like that, it's significant. But here's the critical part. She's not looking for someone to overwhelm her. She's looking for someone who understands the pace, someone who doesn't rush the moment, someone who can hold that quiet tension without trying to force it into something bigger too quickly. Because the moment you rush, she retreats, not because she lost interest, but because the timing feels wrong. And timing in situations like this is everything. If you stay grounded, if you remain calm and aware, if you let the connection build naturally, that quiet intensity begins to grow. It becomes more consistent, more real. And before you even realize it, what started as subtle attention turns into something deeper, something she didn't expect, but something she's slowly allowing herself to feel again. And this is where everything becomes real. Not louder, not more obvious, but deeper. Because when a woman who has been emotionally distant for a long time finally begins to feel again, she doesn't just give attention, she starts investing energy. That's the shift most people never recognize. Attention is easy, it comes and goes. Energy is different, energy stays. You'll notice she becomes more consistent with you, not in an overwhelming way, but in a steady, reliable presence. She shows up, she engages, she remembers, she responds in a way that feels intentional, not accidental. That consistency is not casual. It's a decision. And here's what makes it powerful. She's not doing it because she has to. She's doing it because something about you feels right enough to continue. Now, understand this clearly. When a woman reaches this stage after a long gap without connection, she becomes very aware of what she's risking emotionally. She knows what it feels like to be disconnected. She knows the silence, the distance, the absence of something meaningful. So if she's stepping forward, even slowly, it's not random. It's careful. That's why her actions may still feel controlled. She won't suddenly express everything. She won't rush into anything undefined. But she will stay. And staying is the strongest signal of all. Because people don't stay where they feel nothing. Now, here's the part where most people either understand the moment or lose it completely. They try to speed things up. They try to define it too quickly. They try to turn subtle connection into something immediate. And the moment they do that, the balance breaks. Because what she's responding to is not pressure. It's the natural growth of something she hasn't felt in a long time. And growth takes space. It takes patience. It takes awareness. If you can hold that space without forcing, without overanalyzing, without needing constant validation, something powerful happens. She relaxes further. Her guard lowers more. Her presence becomes warmer, more open, more genuine. And that's when connection turns into something meaningful. Not because you pushed it, but because you allowed it. That's the difference. And this is the truth most people never hear. When someone hasn't experienced connection in a long time, they don't respond to intensity. They respond to consistency. They don't need someone to impress them. They need someone who feels real, grounded, present. Because real presence rebuilds something inside them that they thought they lost. And if you become that presence, you don't just get her attention. You become the reason she starts feeling again. So let me ask you something real. Have you ever noticed someone slowly opening up to you, but you didn't understand what it meant until it was gone? Write your answer in the comments. And if this made you see human connection in a completely different way, like the video, subscribe for deeper psychological insights, and share this with someone who needs to understand what quiet attraction really looks like.